You've been a supporter of Dean Phillips
Yes.
for the 2024 U.S. presidential race.
Yes.
What do you like about Dean?
I think he's a honest, smart, motivated, capable, proven guy as a business leader. And I think in in his 3 terms in Congress, he ran when Trump was elected. He said his kids cried, his daughters cried, inspired him to run for office. Ran in a Republican district in Minnesota for the last 60 years. Was elected in a landslide. Has been reelected twice. Moved up the ranks in the Congress. Respected by his fellow members of Congress. Advanced some important legislation during COVID. On senior roles on various foreign policy committees. Centrist. Considered, I think, the second most bipartisan member of the Congress. I'd love to have a bipartisan president. That's the only way to go forward. But we'd enormously benefit if we had a president that chose policies on the basis of what's best for the country as opposed to what his party wanted. What I like about him is he's financially independent. He's not a billionaire, but he doesn't need the job. The party hates him now because he challenged the king, right? And so, but he's willing to give up his political career because what he thought was best for the country. He tried to get other people to run who were higher profile, had more name recognition. None would. No one wants to challenge Biden. If they want to have a chance to stay in office or run in the future. But he's very principled. I think he would be a great president. But he needs, his shot is Michigan. But he needs to raise money in order to, he's only got a couple weeks. And he's got to be on TV there. That's expensive. So we'll see.
So he has to increase name recognition, all that kind of stuff. Also, we should mention he's young.
Yeah, he's 55, but he's a young 55. You see him play hockey.
Yeah, I mean, I guess 55, no matter what, is a pretty young age.
I'm 57. I feel young. I can do more pull-ups today than I could as a kid. So that's a standard.
You're at the top of your tennis game.
I'm at the top of my tennis game, for sure.
Maybe there's someone that would disagree with that.
And by the way, the other thing to point out here is, and I have been pointing this out as have others, Biden I think is done. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for the country having him as a presidential candidate, let alone the president of the country. It's crazy. And it's just going to get worse and worse. And he should, the worst of his legacy is his ego that prevents him from stepping aside. And that's it. It's his ego. And it is so wrong and so bad and so embarrassing. You talk to people. I was in Europe. I was in London a few days ago, and people are like, Bill, how can this guy be a president? And it's a bit like, again, I go back to my business analogy. Being a CEO is like a full contact sport. Being president of the United States is like some combination of wrestling, marathon running, being a triathlete. I mean, you got to be a serious physical shape and at the top of your game to represent this country. And he is a far cry from that. And it's just getting worse. And it's embarrassing. And he cannot be. And by the way, every day he waits, he's handing the election to Trump because it's harder and harder for an alternative candidate to surface. Now, Dean is the only candidate left on the Democratic side that can still win delegates. He's on the ballot in 42 states. And the best way for Biden to step aside is for Dean to show well in Michigan.
And so you think there is a path with the delegates and all that kind of stuff?
100%. So if what has to happen is, New Hampshire, he went from 0 to 20% of the vote and 10 weeks with no name recognition. Mm-hmm. I helped a little bit. Elon helped. We did spaces for him. We had 350,000 people on the spaces. Some originally 40,000 live or something, and then the rest after. And then he was on the ground in New Hampshire. And New Hampshire is one of the states where you don't need to be registered to a party to vote for that candidate. So it's like jump ball. And he got 20%. And that's with a lot of independents and Democrats voting for Haley. Haley, who I like and who I've supported, does not look like she's going to make it. Trump is really kind of running the table. And so vote for Haley as an independent in Michigan, maybe throw away your vote. I think it increases the likelihood that Dean can get those independent votes. If he could theoretically, again, he needs money. he could beat Biden in Michigan. Biden's doing very poorly in Michigan. His polls are terrible. The Muslim community is not happy with him. And he really has spent no time there. And so if he's embarrassed in Michigan, it could be a catalyst for him withdrawing. Then Dean will get funding. If he wins Michigan or shows well in Michigan, and people say he's viable, he's the only choice we have, he'll attract from the center, he'll attract from people, Republicans who won't vote for Trump, of which they're a big percentage, could be 60% or more, it could be 70% won't vote for Trump, and also from the Democrats. So I think he's a really interesting candidate, but we got to get the word out.
Yeah, I got a chance to chat with Dean. I really like him. And I think the next president of the United States is going to have to meet and speak regularly with Zelensky, Putin, Netanyahu, with world leaders, and have some of the most historic conversations, agreements, negotiations. And I just don't see Biden doing that.
No.
And not for any reason, but sadly, age.
Yeah, I mean, think about it this way. When Biden's present now, you saw his recent impromptu press conference, which he did after the special prosecutor, report basically saying the guy was way past his prime. And then he confused the president of Mexico and the president of Egypt. So they're very careful when they roll him out. And he's scripted and he's always reading from a lectern. Imagine the care they have in exposing him. And when they expose him, it's terrible. Okay, imagine how bad it is for real.
It's not good.
No, bad, really bad for America. And I'm upset with him and upset with his family. I'm upset with his wife. This is the time where the people closest to you have to put their arms around you and say, Dad, honey, okay, you've done your thing. This is going to be your legacy, and it's not going to be a good one.
Great leaders should also know when to step down.
Yeah. One of the best tests of a leader is succession planning. This is a massive failure of succession planning.